So
and that's part of the reason that I speak.
Yeah.
Is like as an agent, I'm like, there's much more competition for me with stages than I imagine there is with you. But there's lots of companies that compete with you now, but not as many of them do stage.
Not in Canada that much. Mm-hmm. Like Canada, yeah, I got like a lot of, here's Jack with his laptop, and that's my competition, right? Like it's not a company. It's like when I started, I was just a guy with a computer and internet connection.
Right.
In Canada, that's the majority of my like true competition for what we do.
Yeah.
There's a couple companies here and there that offer parts of what we do, but it's like me and Agent Locator talking about being competition. We offer very different services, right? Like they're more the website IDX thing, and they offer advertising. We don't there is a thing where we kind of offer a website, but even that's more just like sometimes we just need to have a website as part of it.
Yeah,
but
so you're doing it more. You're doing it less as a product and more of a utility, I guess.
Yeah. So it's like Agent Locator don't really compete. There's a little bit of the competition of yes, we both compete for agent ad spend.
But that's the truth of the matter is because like even a coyote is a competition for a wolf.
Yeah.
And the truth is their existence means that there's less prey.
Yeah.
And and that's something that some people look at it. But for me, I ended up being fairly content strong. I've spent a lot of time trying to become a better public speaker.
So do you actually find that you have a lot of competition to get on stages?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the stages I want are really desirable.
Well, what stages do you want?
I want R4.
You have a hard time being a top producer of Remax to get in at R4?
They put me in a bunch of other places. So I've been on panels with top agent in Canada, top agent in the US, top agent in the world. Yeah. They give me great opportunities. Yeah. But the idea about bringing like crafted content, that's something that is it inspires me. We can talk off air. We're actually starting essentially a speaker bureau for Canadian real estate speakers. Nice.
Yeah, so we're in the right now we're creating the board of directors. Because like it's not a traditional one where it's like, hey, if I book you to speak for $5,000, we get a cut. It's not like that.
Okay.
It's a very different setup that it's basically like let's promote as a group, but vetted speakers. So like, agents who want in, the way it's kind of looking right now is like you could be accepted as a panelist assuming you have expertise. Obviously you have expertise, but if you want to come up to like someone we could promote as someone who could do a workshop, you have to be vetted by the people in the section above you that you have that ability to do that. And then the next phase up from that, the tier 3, the top one is keynote speakers, and to go from workshop to keynote, the people in the keynote tier have to approve you that you're good enough to get into.
So what is a workshop speaker?
So that'd be like, I come into an office being like, hey guys, here's how you do Facebook ads.
Oh, I see.
Right? Whereas like keynote would be like main stage at R4.
Because I have, most of the speakers that are in and around real estate are trainers.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that they're going to talk to you about how to.
Yeah.
I'm not a trainer.
Yeah, so like I recently, for me recently, like I just kind of switched from workshop to having keynotes available too. Like that's even for me a newer switch.
And I'm not saying that I'm necessarily like lends itself only to keynotes, but the truth of the matter is I don't care how you do it. What I'm trying to do is the hard part, which is to ignite the passion to make it happen.
And that was my one at NAR that I just did.
Nice.
I got away from like hard tactics, and it was the strategy, like what actually high level you should be focusing on, but I don't give you the specifics on doing it.
Yeah, and for me, I want to do what makes you move. Like how I value myself as a speaker is essentially with the seats.
Yeah.
Like are they leaning forward? Are they engaged? When I finish this, how many of the people in here are going to be able to action this idea, right? And what I mean by that is, can I bring it closest to the fence, so close to the fence that they can find the way that's available from where they are? Because I think that's the problem with trainers, is that wherever they put the starting point, some people don't believe they're close enough to there, and that's mainly because they're either afraid or overwhelmed. And that's something that I find that if you're able to change their perception, then that's what I'm after.
This is my biggest problem with most real estate speakers, and speakers in general, and trainers, is they don't do a good job at making it seem possible. Or they don't actually know themselves the steps you have to take to get there. Like they know like once you're here, to go here. They don't, if you're there, they don't know this part.
And I think that kind of lacks empathy. because you can know what you did, but the truth is that your job in the moment that you're on stage is to be able to communicate that in a way that's received.
Yeah.
So like early on, it was hard for me because they kept talking about my level being too high. Yeah. I need to bring it down. I need to bring it down. Deliver at 8th grade level is a lot of what they coach you on.
I'm 95% sure I know the answer to this, but who do you, or what industry type of people do you look toward to improve yourself as a speaker and delivery?
Oh, so you're talking about my recent experiment, which is comedy.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So this is something that is like part of my progression as a speaker. Mm-hmm. Initially, where I first started doing a lot of my speaking was career and life management classes in school.
Yeah.
And the main thing is because I didn't finish high school. I got my GED, but I didn't sit in the good kids section in my school, and I almost sat in a jail cell next to the rest of them. So in that moment, in that kind of movement, I really like started to see the world differently and see what was like what myself up to the age where you're supposed to reach that milestone was.
Yeah.
And then my first public speaking ever was I was in mortgages, and I had a great response to a basically an event that I put on, in which I was going to speak at, and it went terribly.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it was awesome. I have to say, it's something special about being bad on stage.
Yeah, it's
a special type
we've
of
all
person.
been there. Yeah, I have never been booed on stage. I've seen it, but I haven't been booed. But I have had ones that have not gone well.
Totally, and not gone well is normally the absence of what you want.
Yeah.
Which is the absence of what you want is you want engagement, you want people to be excited about it, you want that lean forward, that element. And so I started speaking at these career and life management classes just wherever teachers would allow me. And what I was talking about was what I knew. I'd done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mortgages. Yeah. So I got to see people's personal finance and also what they get for what they did. And that's like behind the curtain of what most families will talk about. Yeah. Most of the time you don't even know what your dad makes, right? Or to have a gist, maybe. Yeah. And so in that case, it really revealed that element to them. And that's what allowed me to basically take my first attempts in real estate. So like my first professional talk in real estate was called Red Talks. And
I've seen that.
Have you seen it? Yeah. It actually, the video that went around, it got me other talks.
Yeah, which is normally how it happens.
Yeah, and that was on pricing listings for search engine optimization.
Yeah.
So real nerdy, but essentially like avoiding that like retail left digit effect 99 stuff, and basically playing to the search pools on Realtor.ca for higher like measurable results.
You gotta look at the gaps that they have on the searches.
And stand on the fence.
Yeah.
Right? So 400 instead of 399. Yeah. And so the idea behind that, so that was like the first time, and then that got the attention of somebody who still books me now, which is Storm Francis Fletcher.
I've heard of him. Her.
Yeah.
I know, I must see it on Facebook because I know the name.
Well, she's, yes, you would, she would be, she would be probably considered Richard Robbins' right-hand man.
Okay.
And previous to that, she was the executive assistant to Tony Robbins.
Nice.
So Richard and Tony aren't related, but their relation is Storm.
There you go.
So that's somebody who works with like world-class speakers, and when somebody like that comes to you and says like, what are you doing? Like, why are you even doing real estate? I'm like, what? I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm okay at real estate.
Yeah, I don't suck.
So it seems to be going.
Yeah.
But she was somebody who really pushed me to basically say, like, why don't you see where this gets you? Yeah. And the places that it got me was places like, Facebook. Yeah. I've also toured Apple Park. I got flown by a tech company to Austin, Texas on zero notice.
Nice.
I got notified at 8:30 in the morning. By 11:30 that night, I was in Austin, Texas, and I had 7 waking hours to train a CTO of a tech company to do a 60-second pitch in front of 4 billionaires and 800 people. And we smoked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got some money?
Yeah. Actually, ArisMD just got the NASA iTech Award.
Nice.
So they're doing really well. So that earned me the ability to invest in that company.
Nice.
And that's like irreplaceable.
Yeah. So
those things are really good. And now what you're talking about is recently I've been doing some stand-up comedy. And the reason I'm doing a stand-up comedy is because the speaking that I do is actually quite easy. And what I mean by that is that tomorrow I'm going to be in front of a little over 1,000 people, and they paid to be there. And I'm credible in that space, and there's a reason to listen to me, and normally they just will. Mm-hmm. But that's not what I'm looking to do. So what I find is that I don't really need much of the audience when I'm doing that type. Like when you're talking in front of a big group like you have, what is the audience doing that affects your talk?
Most is just how they're responding and reacting.
So you're asking questions?
Not even questions. It could just be like how they laugh, if they roll their eyes at something, how I react to that. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, there's questions, but even as part of that, like, you got to know questions. Like, you got to be able to prepare to move quick, as a lot of groups just won't answer questions. Mm-hmm. No matter how many tricks you try with wording to get that question answered, some groups won't answer. But for me, it's just like the feel of the crowd and that side, and like working it, which is one of the reasons I hate webinars. I mean, we actually just committed as a team, we're going to start doing them more. But I hate that side of webinars.
I'm going to like seeing your webinars, knowing that you're hitting every minute of it.
Yeah, well, that's why like my team's been on me for a while to do them, because they work. They legitimately can work. But I just don't like them because of much of what I do, you'd call crowd work. Like, mm-hmm. I'm reacting to how people are reacting. Like, if I
you very much have to read your room, right?
Yeah. And if I make a point and I can see that they're really into that, then I'll launch into a story to reinforce it. If I can tell they're not really into it, I move on to the next point, and then maybe that's the one I tell a more in-depth story on. Like, every talk I give will be different.
So you're navigating by feel, but that's actually what I'm learning anyway. So I guess, like with me, I don't really need the crowd to do anything to make my talk successful. Yeah. Like, I need them to feel that it was good and it was valuable, right? Yeah. But at the time that I'm on stage, I don't need them to do anything, right? That wave is like constant, and I can just ride it. Yeah. Whereas in comedy, if the crowd does nothing, you're screwed. Meaning that it's almost like you push on the crowd, and if they don't push back with laughter, you just fall.
Yeah, and it's over.
And so the method is to work like a boxer. So you jab until you find your range, and then once you find your range, then you cluster. Yeah. So you'll see comedians do this over and over again, where basically they'll have testers. Is this a dirty audience? Is this a political audience? Yeah. Is this like, what is this, right?
I have a few things like that.
So this is the reason I'm doing it, is because this is that lesson in concentrate. Yeah. And so once you learn, then you learn how to kind of flurry upon that. And then you have to be able to reload, reset, and go again. Yeah. Now, what I'm hoping to achieve is once I develop that muscle, to be able to do that at scale. Yeah. I've seen some speakers that can absolutely make the room shake.
Yeah, there's some pretty impressive ones out there.
Yep, and that's where it really like challenges our own mindful limitations. Like you were saying, some groups will never answer questions. You put Tony Robbins in front of that group, and let's see.
No, I'm sure they would. He's a professional.
Well, he's the best.
Yeah, like, and I'm not even that much, like, personally, I've never been big into the mind, like, mainly because I've just never needed that side as much. Mm-hmm. So I've never been big on, like, attending Tony Robbins stuff.
Have you ever been?
Once.
Have you ever seen him speak?
Yeah, and this was actually what I was getting to. So it was like, I'll watch the videos, I'm like, cool, he's good at what he does, but whatever. And my brother and I are the same way. Like, both him and I, like, when we're in a room and, like, a speaker's doing that stuff, we're like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. So I'm like, I've always heard about Tony Robbins and how great he is. And I saw he was coming to an event in Toronto, and it was like $100 to attend. And he was like the last speaker of the day.
Yep.
And he's supposed to come on at 4, done by 5. He came on at 5:30, finished out at like 11.
Yeah.
And both at one point, my brother and I looked at each other and we're like, do you realize we've been standing? He asked everyone in the room to stand for a second. We haven't sat down for an hour and a half. And both of us we were both looked at each other, we're like, holy shit. Like, he got us, who are like the worst possible audience to do that, to stand for an hour and a half before we both were like, wait, we've been standing for an hour and a half. Like, I was just straight impressed at that skill that he has to do that. Like,
and also, look at the time that you were there.
Yeah.
Most people, even if it was their favorite band,
yeah.
would be looking at their watches at that point.
Yeah.
And this guy plays you.
Mm-hmm.
That audience is his symphony.
Yeah. And he now also watching like the production of it, of like the music people and the sound effect people and everyone work, like he has such like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
That like even just the simple part of him walking up and down the aisles is such a production, from the security people involved to like the direction. Yeah. But while he's still like half interacting with people but never looks at them. like you can just tell this is someone who figured out the system, and whoosh, he kills it.
Yeah. It's amazing to see.
Yeah.
And that's actually really interesting, just given your because every audience is comprised of you and your brother at the far end, right? You're the guys who are sizing up the speakers when they walk up on stage.
Yeah.
And then on the front end is the keeners. Mm-hmm. And the keeners are like, oh man, I'm just here to learn things, and like maybe they're new.
Whatever he says, they're going to be excited.
Oh yeah, I'll get my one or two things. Like they're just jazzed.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because laughter actually pairs the room up.
Yeah.
So if you can make them laugh, then what you'll find is that the front group will laugh for sure, but the experience from you and your brother is that you're going to see 2 out of 3 people around you laughing.
Yeah.
And the social proof to get on board is that's what softens that far edge of the audience, so that maybe you have a chance of engagement later on.
Mm-hmm. So that was actually interesting. Yesterday I saw George Bush speak.
Okay.
And that, she wasn't speaking, it was more of a fireside chat. Him and Chrétien were actually the best parts of the day. But it was how easily they got people laughing. Like, I knew Chrétien could be funny. I've seen the odd joke from Bush when he's spoken in the past, but you'd never think of Bush as a funny guy. Mm-hmm. He had, within the first 5 minutes, the crowd howling. Yeah. Like, it was an impressive crowd work. And then he'd make fun of the crowd work. Because, like, after he made a point, then he goes, by the way, it's called pandering. Just like perfectly delivered. Totally. And he killed it. And I was like, he held the room. Yep. Like, and this is a guy coming in, and like, there's a lot of people, if you're liberal, not big George Bush fans. Totally. Like, there was people when he got announced being like, oh, I have to go see a war criminal. Like, that level of like, screw this guy. That level of offense. I heard just constant laughter. Yeah. Like, he killed it. Killed it. But he understands, and he is a very practiced speaker. Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah, it's not his first time. No, but also it would have people around him that were coaching him on those same principles, mm-hmm. right? And then the essentially like try to pair the audience early on, get that far side to come on board with you, and then moving through to essentially get everybody to move in your direction. Yeah. But that's a big part of it, is unify the audience and then deliver to where you're going. That's what pandering works. Yeah, pandering is a good way to get them on board. Yeah, but I love, like, I study comedy a lot when I'm trying to improve my speaking. Like I remember one that really hit home with me was I was watching Seinfeld talk about crafting jokes. Uh-huh. And he was specifically going on one sentence in one of his things, and he's looking at it and going over it, and he's like, this sentence is just one syllable too long. And you just see him, like, making these lines around this sentence, figuring it out until he figured out, like, which syllable of, like, in the entire sentence, like, which one syllable he could take out that wouldn't impact the joke, but then would make it better because it was the right length. Mm-hmm. Like, it was that level of detail he had. And then when you watch him, it feels like he's making it up as he goes. And you're just like, that's talent. That's why
also, like, the cadence is something that's, like, takes a lot to get used to. Yeah. Like, talk, wait. Talk, wait. Yeah. Talk, wait. I've adjusted a few talks based on that. Like, okay, like, I know I'm going to get a laugh here, so I can't jump into the next joke. Or scary when those miss. Oh, yeah. When you're like, when you give a push and then there's nothing, you're like, okay, try again. And just move around. That's a skill of, like, you doesn't land the way you expect to not make it seem like that happened. Yeah, I've been going to these open mics, right? Yeah. And an open mic is an interesting environment to attempt comedy because the people that are attending, it's like going to karaoke. They're not there to see comedy, man. They're there to have the microphone. Yeah. So they're not, like, big into that stuff to start with. Or you get the few people who are there to kind of see a train wreck. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the definitely, and you get plenty of those. You get plenty of like people that get up there and they kind of go and they don't even wait for the light.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, I'm out. I'm on material.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that, but also it's interesting to see the pros.
Yeah.
So there's a few guys that come in that like this one guy, Lars. He did 400 shows last year.
That's good.
And he comes in like he'll come into an open night on like a Wednesday night and just do his push-ups. Hey, is this funny? Oh man, I haven't written an ending for that, but I'll get back to you guys. And then he goes back to his notebook.
Yeah. Have you ever? Do you go to New York City ever?
I have been, but I don't go.
Did you go to the Comedy Cellar when you were in town?
No.
So that is like my new New York thing. Anytime I go,
Nice.
I have to go there because like it's basically before like true fame, the last stop for most comedians. Of like, it's hard. Like when a comedian who's been like working for years gets invited to perform there, like they're Instagramming the contract signing to be like, I'm doing the Comedy Cellar.
And the same thing on the West Coast is the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, it's the Manhattan equivalent of that.
Yep, you bet.
But what's great about it is every now and then a real celebrity drops in.
Yeah.
To practice, and it's like when I went, Judd Apatow showed up.
Nice.
But he had his whole notebook out with him, and you can see him being like, "Yep, that one landed. This one didn't. All right." And you can just see like as he's talking. He's almost not looking at the paper. He's just, you can see him scribbling
so much.
Notes. Yeah. Just scribbling. And then he ended up going on tour not that long after that for the first time in like 20 years. And we were seeing his warm up. And then like my buddy went, like 3 weeks later, got Louis C.K. and Chris Rock.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And seeing those guys in those environments and then seeing what the finished product is.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you see your band play a set of songs and maybe they play the one that you like. Maybe they don't, but the idea is that they play a certain set that they know works well at a concert, right? And these guys are playing certain jokes that they know are going to work for that crowd, but that's because they go on the road and they develop this repertoire that's really wide because they've tried all these places. Yeah, it's interesting to do, and it's incredibly hard. I have a lot more respect for it than originally.
The more I watch comedy and like all the, like I think stand-up comedy is the hardest form of public speaking.
I would agree.
Like it's tough.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've got 2.5 hours until I go up on stage.
Oh yes, you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Let's see what happens.